There's a moment before humiliation lands where time does a trick. It slows down, bends inward. You notice details you would have missed otherwise. The clink of glass, the angle of someone's jawline, the way your wife's hair falls just over her phone screen as she scrolls past you. You see it all, suspended like a photograph, seconds before everything detonates. That was the moment right before Ryan raised his glass. It was a company dinner. One of those expensive, end-of-quarter events where bonuses clink against wine glasses and fake laughter stacks up like dust on a chandelier. We were in a private room downtown. Paneled walls, sharp linens, the kind of restaurant where the light is low enough to forgive anything. I'd invited Laura. She hadn't wanted to come. Said it was a work thing. Said it was probably boring. But I pressed. I thought maybe if she saw how they respected me, how I mattered in some room, somewhere, maybe it would change something. Maybe it would remind her who I had been before the weight of everything we stopped talking about. Ryan came because she told him to. Not because he wanted to support me. Not because he saw value in showing up for the man who paid his tuition, his car insurance, his weekend errands when he needed to get out of the city. No. He came because she texted him, "Be there. Wear something decent." He wore a wrinkled blazer over a graphic tee. Sat next to her like a stone. Across the table, my team cracked jokes about market trends. They toasted our department's wins, the projects we'd survived, the long hours I'd put in. My director clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You pulled us through Q3, my friend." The room nodded, glasses raised. For a minute, I felt visible. For a minute, I thought maybe it was worth it. That's when Ryan stood up. No one asked him to. No one expected it. But he pushed back his chair, loudly, and lifted his glass like he was about to honor a retiree. His eyes skimmed the room, then landed on mine. And then he said it. "Thanks for the seat. You were my wallet, not my family." Just like that. No smile. No irony. Just fact. Clean and sharpened. The air went still. The words hovered over the table like a dead bird dropped into the soup. You could feel everyone trying to figure out if they'd misheard. You could hear the silence shifting its weight, preparing to stay a while. Then came the awkward chuckles. Polite, brittle laughs. The kind people make when they're desperate for someone else to break the tension. One of my junior analysts took a long sip of her cocktail like it might erase what she'd just witnessed. Someone murmured, "Wow," low enough to not be caught. I didn't blink. I didn't clear my throat or offer a deflection. I looked at Ryan, and for the first time, I saw him exactly as he was. A man grown tall on borrowed money and empty gratitude, speaking the quiet part out loud, because deep down, he knew there'd never been a price. And Laura, she didn't even flinch. She just kept texting. Her head tilted down, her fingers dancing across the screen. I could see the pale blue glow reflecting in her wine glass. I waited for her to look at me, not to defend me, maybe not even to scold him, but just to see me, to acknowledge what had just been done to the man who paid for her son's life, who picked up her half of the mortgage every month without asking, who had sat through holidays with her ex-husband's name buzzing like a ghost at the table. But she never looked up. That was the part that did it. Not Ryan's cruelty. That had been coming for years. I had excused it when he was 12 and angry. I forgave it when he was 16 and sullen. I tried to understand it when he was 20 and cold. I told myself it was teenage confusion, loyalty to his father, hormones, grief, whatever lie helped me sleep. But Laura's silence, that was a scalpel. Because silence is permission. I reached for my napkin, folded it once, and placed it neatly beside my plate. No sound. No fuss. I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs scraped the floor, a rough sound against velvet hush. Every eye turned to me now, not in respect, but in discomfort, like they were watching something collapse they couldn't fix. I didn't look at Ryan again, didn't say a word to Laura. I walked out of the dining room, down the hall lined with polished mirrors and dim sconces. The music from the main bar grew louder as I moved. Laughter, silverware, life. But it all felt distant, underwater. There's something unholy about realizing you've overstayed your welcome in a life you built. like waking up in your own bed and being told you don't live there anymore. No shouting, no fight, just absence. The kind of absence that doesn't explain itself. In the hallway, I paused beside a tall window. The city lights bled into each other like melting stars. People moved below, tiny, urgent shapes. The sky was the color of steel. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a reaction. It was a conclusion. Not rage. Not revenge. Just the final line on a long receipt I'd never meant to keep. Ryan had told the truth. Not just his truth, the truth. I was the wallet. The fallback plan. The invisible net that made every bad decision survivable. I had been tolerated, not cherished. Resented, not respected. A man-shaped account number. And Laura, by saying nothing, had agreed. How many times had I paid the phone bill after Ryan blew through data watching Twitch streams? How many weekends had I driven out to fix a flat tire or replace a headlight he couldn't be bothered with? How many dinners had I cooked while he sat on the couch, scrolling through people more interesting than me? The answer didn't matter anymore. None of it did. Because once a child tells you what you are to him, and the mother says nothing, the verdict is in. There's no appealing it. There's no coming back. I stepped outside into the cold. The street was slick from a recent rain. My breath fogged the air. I could still hear the faint echo of the dining room, the forks, the low voices, as if they were continuing without me. And they were. I walked past the valet, waving him off. I needed the cold air. Needed the silence that wasn't laced with contempt. When I reached my car at the far end of the lot, I didn't start it right away. I sat there in the dark, my hands resting on the wheel, my reflection staring back at me in the windshield. That's when I knew what I was going to do. Not out of anger. Not to teach anyone a lesson. But because there's a line a man crosses where giving more becomes betrayal. Not of others, but of himself. They had drawn that line tonight. I just hadn't seen it until now. I sat in the car for over an hour. Not thinking. Just breathing. The rain had returned, soft against the windshield. Barely there. It tapped like fingers from the other side of a life I was no longer part of. My phone lay face down in the center console. No messages. No calls. No apologies. Of course not. At 11:40 p.m. I picked it up. The glow of the screen lit my face in the empty parking lot. I opened my banking app first. The password field blinked like it was daring me. I typed it without hesitation, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't. I was clean now. Empty. The first account was titled Education. It had been set up years ago, back when Ryan got accepted into his overpriced university. I remembered the orientation weekend, the parents' brunch. Laura cried when she saw his dorm room. I paid for the furniture the first semester, the laptop he never thanked me for. Ryan had already stopped calling me by name back then. It had been years since I'd heard Dad. What came in its place was silence or worse, polite disregard. I hit edit, disabled all auto payments, disconnected the card, replaced the payer info. In the field marked primary billing contact, I entered one name, Ryan Cooper. Next was the rent. Their apartment near campus, the one I had co-signed because he's just starting out, sat at $2,400 a month. I remembered signing that lease. I had been the only one who showed up to the appointment with a folder of documents, proof of income, identity, credit. Ryan arrived late, chewing gum, wearing a hoodie that said "not my problem." The irony didn't even sting anymore. I opened the landlord portal. There it was. Next payment due in 3 days. I clicked Cancel Recurring Payment. A small prompt appeared. Are you sure you want to stop automatic rent payments? This may affect the lease agreement. Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Would you like to notify the other tenant? No. His inbox would let him know soon enough. I moved down the list. Auto insurance, disabled. Phone plan, removed my card. Textbook subscription, canceled. Fuel card, closed. Groceries app, deleted my access. Streaming accounts, logged out from all devices. Medical copay card, terminated. Health insurance, reassigned to Laura. She had a job. She could figure it out. Gym, canceled. Therapy sessions I never got thanked for, gone. One by one, the dominoes fell. With each click, another tether broke. Not in fury, in finality. I moved with the precision of a man folding away the life of someone who had died. By the time I reached the last one, it was past 2 a.m. There was one remaining account, a shared emergency fund I had set up for Laura, just in case. It had $7,200 left in it. I remembered the night I made it. She had come home crying about a coworker being laid off. "What if something happens to me?" she asked. I said, "Don't worry." I built safety nets like a man convinced no one else knew how to fall. I transferred the full amount out. Closed the account. No warning. Because that's the part they never tell you. When people see you as a wallet, you don't owe them a goodbye. Just a balance of zero. At 2:19 a.m., I shut the phone off, placed it back in the console, leaned back in the seat. Outside, the rain had stopped. I stared at the ceiling of the car, felt the pressure in my chest lift like a bruise you finally exhale. This wasn't spite. Spite wants witnesses. Spite wants blood. This was subtraction. Precision. I wasn't burning the house down. I was walking out of it, bill in hand, and saying, "Not my name, not my debt." I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I sat in the stillness, the kind of stillness that only follows after years of noise you pretended was normal. I thought of the dinners I paid for where Ryan wouldn't look me in the eye. The vacations where Laura posted photos of family time while I sat behind the camera. The birthdays I funded for a boy who never said thank you, only asked for more. I remembered every "you're not my real dad" that never needed to be spoken. Because it was there in every tone, every side glance, every shrug. Spoken not just by Ryan but by Laura too, every time she let it slide. I watched the way she backed him up with silence. The way she never corrected him, just filled the room with half smiles and deflections. I remembered when she once whispered, "You're doing too much. He's not even your blood." That night I didn't sleep. I waited in the car until the sky cracked open with dawn. Then I drove home. Not fast, not slow, just forward. The house was quiet. Lights off. Laura's car was in the driveway. I stepped inside like a ghost walking back into the scene of his own murder. Shoes off. Keys on the counter. My phone stayed in my pocket. I walked past the kitchen, past the photos on the fridge, the ones where I was always behind the camera, never in front. I paused at one of them, Ryan's graduation. He was grinning. Laura had her arm around him. I stood just to the side, cropped by poor framing or perfect intention. I plucked the photo from the magnet, folded it once, then twice, and slipped it into the trash. I didn't slam doors. I didn't write a note. At 8:15 a.m., the systems began to crash. The emails hit their inboxes one by one. Subject: payment failed. Tuition account locked. Subject: rent past due, urgent action required. Subject: fuel card declined at pump. Subject: insurance policy lapsed. Subject: account access suspended. Contact administrator. I imagined Ryan waking up late, rubbing sleep from his eyes, checking his phone with a hangover's fog. The confusion, then the panic, then the scramble. I imagined Laura walking into the kitchen, coffee in hand, and seeing him already on the phone with the registrar, his voice rising in disbelief. There's been a mistake. No, there had been a decision. I wasn't stealing anything from them. I wasn't revoking something I'd promised. I was just removing myself from a life that refused to admit I was ever there. By 9:12 a.m., my phone had started vibrating. First Ryan, then Laura, then Ryan again. I didn't answer. Let them feel the absence. Let them sit in the silence they built. They had always spoken like I was optional. Now they'd see what happened when the optional left. The first call came at 8:27 a.m. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I hadn't tasted. The house was quiet in that artificial way, the calm before a system realizes it's failing. My phone buzzed once on the wood. Ryan's name lit the screen. I let it ring. By 8:34, it buzzed again. Then again. 3 calls in 7 minutes. Panic has a rhythm. You can hear it even through glass. At 8:41, Laura's name appeared. That one stayed lit longer. She didn't hang up quickly. She waited. I imagined her standing in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, jaw tight, already rehearsing how this was my fault. I finished my coffee, set the mug in the sink. Still didn't answer. By 9:02, the text started. What did you do? Is this a mistake? Ryan's tuition says locked. The rent bounced. You need to fix this. Now. Need. The word sat there like a demand, not a question. As if I'd broken a rule instead of finally obeying one. At 9:15, Ryan switched tactics. My card got declined at the gas station. I'm stranded. This isn't funny. You had no right. That one made me pause. No right. I stared at the words until they blurred. Funny how quickly they forget their own language. Funny how entitlement rewrites history the moment comfort disappears. I typed back one message. Just one. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I just stopped paying for a life I wasn't part of. Then I set the phone face down. The silence that followed was different. Sharper. Heavy with consequences. I could feel it stretching through the walls, down the street, all the way to Ryan's cramped apartment where reality was finally knocking without a credit limit. When Laura came home, it was just afternoon. I heard the door slam. Not a dramatic slam, a controlled one. The kind meant to signal anger without losing dignity. Her heels clicked down the hall. She stopped in the doorway and stared at me like I'd become someone else overnight. What did you do? She asked. Not why. Not can we talk. Just accusation. I didn't look up from the paper I was reading. I made things accurate. Her laugh was short and disbelieving. You reassigned everything to Ryan. Tuition, rent, insurance. Do you have any idea what you've done to him? I folded the paper once. Slowly. I did exactly what he said. I removed myself. That was a joke, she snapped. He was drunk. Showing off. I met her eyes then. No. He was honest. And you let him be. Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked away, pacing now, running a hand through her hair. You're punishing us. No, I said. I stopped subsidizing disrespect. Ryan called again, this time on speaker. His voice filled the room. Thin, sharp, unraveling. Are you serious right now? He shouted. The registrar says I'm on hold. My landlord's threatening fees. You can't just disappear like this. I waited until he finished. Then I spoke evenly. You told a room full of people I was your wallet. Wallets don't speak. They close. Laura flinched. You're doing this to make a point, Ryan said. You want control. I shook my head. Control is paying and pretending it's love. This is distance. There was a pause, breathing on the other end. Then his tone changed. Softer. Strategic. Okay, fine. I went too far. But this affects my future. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at the street. So did your words. Laura whispered. Please. That word again. The one that always came after the damage, never before. Ryan spoke again, anger seeping back in. Mom says you always resented me, that you were just waiting for an excuse. I smiled at that, not because it was funny, because it was revealing. If that were true, I said, I would have left years ago. I stayed because I thought effort mattered. He went quiet. Then, finally, the truth slipped out. I didn't think you'd actually stop. There it was. Not remorse. Not regret. Surprise. I know, I said. That's the problem. Laura sat down heavily, like the weight finally reached her bones. You're tearing this family apart. I looked at her. Really looked. No. I'm stepping out of the way so you can see what was holding it up. The room filled with a silence no one laughed through this time. No phones. No deflection. Just the sound of systems failing without a default provider. When Ryan spoke again, his voice was smaller. So that's it. I answered without hesitation. That's it. The call ended. Laura stayed seated, staring at nothing. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just nodded slowly, like someone watching a bridge collapse they'd been driving across for years. Outside, life kept moving. Cars passed. Neighbors laughed. Somewhere, someone paid a bill without thinking twice. Inside, the laughing had stopped. And for the first time, so had I. The quiet didn't feel like peace. Felt like absence. That kind of absence that settles into walls, into furniture, into the grooves on a dinner table you once scraped clean for people who left their plates behind. The house didn't echo. It absorbed, the silence swallowing sound like it was trying to hide shame. Ryan didn't call again for 3 days. The next message came through at 6:08 a.m. On a Tuesday. I saw the notification when I rolled over. Phone blinking on the nightstand like a pulse I'd ignored. Just one line. Please, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Didn't answer. At 6:32. Another. I don't have access to anything. They said I missed the deadline. The school's locking me out. At 7:10, Laura knocked on the bathroom door while I was shaving. She didn't wait for an answer. I can't keep lying to him, she said, voice muffled through the wood. He thinks you'll change your mind. I rinsed the razor in silence. Just talk to him, she said. Help him get back on his feet. That's all he needs. He's scared. So was I said. For years. She didn't respond. She walked away. The next night, I found Ryan sitting in the driveway. His car was still, windows fogged, headlights off. I hadn't heard him pull up. It was late, past 11. I'd been in the garage sorting tools, the same ones I'd used to repair his flat tire last winter. In the cold, while he sat inside texting someone more important. I stood just inside the open door, watching him. He didn't notice me at first. He was staring down at something in his lap. His phone maybe, or a bill. I couldn't see clearly. He looked small. It hit me then he wasn't a boy anymore. But he wasn't a man either. He was something between, trembling under the weight of a life he'd never learned to carry. And for a moment, just a flicker, I almost stepped forward. But I didn't, because this wasn't a lesson. It was a reveal. He hadn't changed. He was showing who he'd always been, now that the scaffolding had been stripped away. Eventually he got out of the car, walked toward the porch with the kind of steps that sagged under more than just exhaustion. I didn't open the door. I let him knock. Once, twice, then again, faster now. Michael, he called. Please. I opened it slowly. He looked up at me. Eyes ringed red, lips tight, hands stuffed in the pockets of a coat I had bought him last Christmas. I'm not here to fight, he said. I need to talk. I didn't invite him in. He stepped inside anyway. The heat from the house wrapped around him. He didn't take off his coat. Didn't sit. He just stood in the hallway, staring at the floor like it held the answer. I can't stay at the apartment, he said. They gave me 2 days to leave. I said nothing. I tried calling my dad. He continued, voice low. He won't pick up. I messaged him. Nothing. Still, I didn't speak. I know I messed up. I know I said things I shouldn't have. He looked up then, eyes full of that watery desperation people mistake for change. I didn't mean it like that. I tilted my head. Then, how did you mean it? He hesitated. I was angry. I didn't think. That much is clear. Silence stretched. He shifted his weight. You were always there, he said finally. Even when I didn't ask. I noticed. I thought that meant you'd always be there. I leaned against the doorway. That was your mistake. His eyes dropped again. I'm not asking you to fix everything. I need help. Just a little. Just to get me through. That's when I realized he still didn't understand. He thought this was a low point, a valley he could climb out of. He didn't see that the mountain was gone, that there was no summit to return to. I stepped aside, walked into the living room. He followed. Help me with the rent, he said. Just this once, and I'll pay you back. I swear. I sat down. With what? He didn't answer. Do you have a job? He shook his head. Are you enrolled? No. They froze my account. Do you have a plan? I'm trying to figure it out. I looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't crying. Not really. He was performing a kind of grief, the only kind he knew. The kind that pleads for rescue but never for responsibility. "I'm not asking for everything," he said. "Just a little. Enough to get me stable." Stable. Like he'd been on the verge of anything but collapse this entire time. "You've never been stable," I said. "You've just been carried." He flinched. I leaned forward. "You thought you could tell me who I was in your life and still expect me to finance that life. You thought words didn't cost anything." I said I was sorry. "No," I said. "You said you needed me, and that was the difference." Laura entered the room then, stopped in the doorway. Her eyes went from me to him. She looked tired, older. "Let him stay," she said softly. "Just for the night." I looked at Ryan. "Is that what you want?" He nodded. "Just the night." I gestured to the couch. "One night. No promises." He collapsed into it like a man dropping from a great height. Shoes still on. Hands pressed to his face. He slept hard. I didn't. I lay beside Laura, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his breathing from the next room. Steady. Safe. Just like it had always been. In the morning he was gone. Left before sunrise. No note. No call. Nothing taken. Nothing left. Laura said nothing. Neither did I. It wasn't until later that week that I got the letter. It was from the university. Official seal. Return address in the corner. I opened it slowly, expecting more bureaucracy. Instead, it was personal. A letter from the dean of students. Someone had reached out, probably Laura, trying to reinstate his enrollment. The letter was polite, empathetic, but final. "We understand that familial support can be complex. Unfortunately, the institution cannot extend grace beyond our established policies. Mr. Cooper's enrollment has been discontinued due to non-payment. He is welcome to reapply at a future date, provided financial obligations are met." I folded the letter, slipped it into the drawer beside my bed. Later that night, I found Laura at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a plate too clean. She didn't turn when I spoke. "They won't let him back in." Her hands stopped. Water kept running. She nodded once. "He asked if I'd reconsider." Her shoulders stiffened. I told him no. She said nothing. I waited. Then I walked away. Because this was the cost of clarity. And once it's paid, you don't ask for change.